Hello, good morning. My name is Adam Zarati. This is history assignment number 7, discussion forum, racism and civil rights. After watching the videos, we were supposed to comment on the discussion as what do these videos teach about historical and contemporary history. Well, in the first video, Racism is Real, Brave New World depicts the dual standard applied between blacks and whites when it comes to equality. My first impression were my own thoughts and beliefs. I had asked myself, was I ever in any position in my lifetime where I inadvertently and unknowingly practiced racism? And I honestly have to answer yes, but not directly, mostly indirectly. Um, when I was hiring a candidate for a purchasing position, I was given several resumes, and after looking through them and going through interviews, I weeded out the candidates that I deemed undesirable, whether it was by where they lived, education level, appearance, and posture. I was looking for the look, someone who could represent themselves in a professional manner. I realize now I was practicing not only discrimination but racism. Same holds true when I was searching for schools for my home. Uh, when I was searching for schools or a home for my family, I wanted the best schools, but more importantly, I did not want to live in a blighted neighborhood. That was more important to me over the racial mix of the school for my children. The neighborhood had to look manicured, well kept, front yards, hardly any cars on the street. Curb appeal was most important. I wasn't afraid of my children being racially mixed in school. After all, I didn't teach them racism, um, and I kind of just wanted, I just kind of wanted the look. Um, so in in the video where Centauri Thomas was trying to cash a check or deposit funds in his bank account, bank discrimination against him isn't surprising to me. When most people of color enter a bank that is primarily run by whites, 10 out of 10 times they are looked at as if they are going to rob it. It has happened to myself on several occasions. I operated a construction company and had several large checks to cash to make payroll. We were working we were working in an affluent neighborhood and visited the local bank. The same thing that happened to Centauri Thomas happened to myself when I spoke. And when I spoke to the bank manager about it, I was given a story that they were unable to verify the funds. Now these funds were drawn on their bank, um, but they were, for some strange reason, they were unable to verify the funds. They didn't even run the check. Since I had to make payroll, to our home. We drove back home to our neighborhood bank, where there were people of color working and a few white people. I had no problems cashing the checks, but did have to wait an hour for the bank to transfer money from another bank, as they knew my crew was outside in the parking lot waiting to be paid. This racial discrimination continues today. Funny, I can conduct my business in a bank of color with zero issues, but I am closely watched in a bank of non-color, and my banking business takes forever. Now, when I saw the marble video, uh, the marble statue video, the all white, pearly white, depiction of ancient Rome and history and stuff, um, I'm reminded of a quote uh, from a paper from Elizabeth Martinez, and she describes white supremacy as white supremacy is a historically based, institutionally perpetuated system of exploitation and oppression of continents, nations, and peoples of color by white peoples and nations of the European continent for the purpose of maintaining and defending a system of wealth and power and privilege. Today I hardly see any racial discrimination improvements. I'm 60 years old. I grew up in a racially, I grew up, not, no, I'm sorry. I grew up in a diverse neighborhood. We had blacks, Mexicans, Indians, Armenians. you name it, our racial was colorful. I mean, our neighborhood was colorful. So I don't think I grew up. I don't think I grew up racially biased. Uh, However, like I said, I don't see any, hardly see any racial discrimination improvements. In fact, I see the opposite. People of color don't get fired from a job due to lack of performance because the company has a policy that says they have to have one, whether it's a black person, an Indian, a people of non-color, they have to have at least one. And I find it today that commercials must have a person of color, uh, and the music and the background music has to be representative of a black person's of color. I'm sorry, of color, etc. You know, something in that commercial has to be deemed people of color or basically black. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against it, but I believe it's too much for me. I'm overloaded with the concept of blacks being portrayed as whites. I am not openly racial. I don't act racial, speak racial, or teach racial discrimination. But I think deep down inside my subliminal emotions, I have racial discrimination tendencies. But it took me over 40 years to realize it. And I want to close my video with 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 people of color that are in the shadows. I mean, everybody has seen, Hidden Figures, the Tuskegee Airmen. But one of my favorite ones is a person who was a janitor, and you know, his name was Vivian Thomas, and he's portrayed in the movie Something the Lord Made. Uh, Look it up; it's very good. Uh, he was a black lab assistant, but he was originally hired as a janitor. And unbeknown to Dr. Alfred Blaylock, a white surgeon specializing in tetralogy of fallout, more commonly known as blue baby syndrome, uh, Vivian Thomas. Vivian Thomas stuck. Actually, the other way around. Alfred Blaylock stuck with Vivian Thomas, this black person. Alfred knew that Vivian was never going to get the accolades or the accreditation that this brilliant lab assistant had. So Vivian had gotten his education by himself. He had mortgaged everything, was broke, et cetera, et cetera. But he persevered through this. But because of racism, Vivian Thomas never got any credit for the procedure that he invented. Now, the procedure that he invented was uh, he incorporated a stunt between the subclavian artery and the pulmonary artery, basically doing a bypass. And 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 it was Vivian Thomas that came up with the procedure. Now, imagine back then, okay, giving credit to a black man that saved white children. Although Dr. Alfred Blaylock expressed gratitude towards Vivian Thomas and gave him credit for it, he explained that society wasn't ready to accept it and encouraged Vivian Thomas to continue to study at Johns Hopkins University. Now, with no formal medical training, like I said, Vivian Thomas persevered through all the racial barriers imposed by a segregated society. And it wasn't until 1976 he was awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws by Johns Hopkins University. His portrait is still there today. So I encourage you guys to watch the movie, learn something about Vivian Thomas. He's one of my favorite gentlemen. Again, thank you for your time, and have a great weekend.